The aforementioned tuning that was going to be coming on the 17th was announced today. So in this video, I'm going to kind of talk through at least the tanks and talk about what is significantly changing. So I'm going to primarily be focusing on Brewmaster stuff, and I do have some other things I do want to discuss towards the end of the video about Brewmaster specifically that aren't based on just these notes. It's going to be other things for the live season and for the 12.0.5 patch. So if you're looking for that, stay tuned. But let's jump into these notes. So I'm going to be a little late on this video, and I'm sure there's a ton of other content creators who have already talked about this, but I also want to give my general opinion. This tuning is based off the first few days of Midnight Max level play. So this is the data that Blizzard is supposedly using to make their first tuning pass, which makes sense. Now, I would also imagine that some of this was dictated via beta, but I also don't know, but we'll take this at face value. So, Death Knight. It looks like this is mostly Deathbringer. They haven't really touched Sand Lane, so Reaper's Mark damage increased by 20%, Exterminate damage also increased by 20%, Wave of Souls damage increased by 20%, Deathly Blows now increase the damage of Deathstrike by 12% was 5. This is a pretty significant buff for single target. And then Bind in Darkness now increases the damage of Blood Boil by 30% was 10. So these are very sizable buffs for Deathbringer. I remember towards the end of beta, Deathbringer just wasn't being competitive. Now, Sand Lane was doing significant AoE damage. Not necessarily, I don't know if their like single target was all that great, but Deathbringer was definitely behind. So these buffs are good. I can't speak too much to it since I have not leveled my Death Knight so far in Midnight, but this is definitely something to keep an eye on. Their damage getting significantly increased like this is a good sign. Moving down, we have Vengeance Demon Hunter. Now, a lot of this came down to a flat aura buff because overall Vengeance was a little bit behind the other tanks, so I think an all damage percent increase is good. Now, Eldraki Reaver got really bad at the end of beta. Basically, what happened was there was a ton of bugs with Eldraki Reaver, and they kept nerfing Eldraki before even fixing the bugs, and then when they finally fixed the bugs, Eldraki Reaver was doing like half the damage compared to everyone else. So we are seeing a damage increase on all damage. Then we're seeing Immo Orb getting increased by even more, by another 10%. And then what we're seeing is we're seeing Eldraki Reaver changes specifically. So Wounded Quarry effect now increased to 20%, was 15. I believe this was nerfed during beta, so they're buffing it back up. I might be thinking of something else, but I'm pretty sure it's Wounded Quarry. Reaver's Glaive damage also increased by 8%, so that's also a nice change. For those who were curious on what the bug is, basically Thrill of the Fight was double dipping into their old buff and their new buff, so they were getting a massive haste and damage buff, and then they gutted both of those, and now it's like really bad. Fear of the Eldraki also increased by 8%, and Eldraki Reaver Thrill of the Fight, the haste bonus is now being upped by 25% from 6 up to 8%. Now, Throw of the Fight is something that you're going to have quite often when you're playing Eldraki Reaver, so this is like relatively like a permanent haste buff in most cases, or close to, I should say. You're going to have more uptime than not. And the whole gameplay loop is maintaining this Throw of the Fight bonus as long as you possibly can, giving you more haste, which is more generation, which means more casts, damage, more Fear of the Eldraki, so it's all good. I don't know if this will really make Eldraki better. I feel like Annihilator hero talent seems to be better based on like what I know about the class coming out of beta and these changes. So I'm excited that Eldraki is getting buffed, but I don't think this like makes the meta or anything. All right, so here's the big one, Guardian Druid. This was we got some pretty significant nerfs, but I want to talk through these each and every one. So Moonless Night was actually nerfed back down to 20%, down from 40. This was a buff that we saw on beta that made Druid of the Claw like skyrocket in damage because their damage Moonless Night was just like so much, right? Because direct damage relates to like Mangle, Thrash, Ravage, and I believe your Echoes as well. And so what was happening is that you were like double and triple dipping into Moonless Night based off of all your procs and your Echoes and all this crazy shit. So they are just like straight up tuning this back. Now, what's interesting is that they actually buffed Wild Guardian rank 4, now Echoes at 300% effectiveness instead of 150%. I'm a little sad about this because I don't feel like Apex talents should feel required, but they now will. And this is going to be common for not just Druid, but also Warrior as well. They have nerfed ability damage across the board by 20%. So we have a nerf, buff, nerf. Moonfire damage reduced by 10% instead of the 20. Druid of the Claw specifically is also seeing some pretty massive nerfs. So damage dealt by Ravage to main target reduced by 27%. And the bleed is also being reduced by 23%. Dreadful Wound. Druid of the Claw, killing blows now increases maul, raise, and ravage damage up to 70% based on rage consumed, was 100. Now this is just affecting Druid of the Claw supposedly, so if you're playing a Loon's Chosen, it should still be 100 is what I'd imagine, or this is a typo. And then Druid of the Claw, the final one, is Strike for the Heart, now increases mangle damage by 10%, was 20. Bestial Strength now increases maul, raise, and ravage by another 10% instead of 20. So kind of these like interesting compounding nerfs. Now what's interesting to me though is that Wild Guardian is going to echo at 300% effectiveness. So while a lot of these abilities are getting nerfed, during incarnation or after incarnation, the echo should be actually quite potent. So I think it's shifting some of their damage into their actual cooldown. Now this is a pretty sizable nerf. I am a little sad about it because I think Druid of the Claw for the first time almost ever, I think ever since its release or its inception, was going to be looking to be quote unquote strong or meta or whatever language you want to use there. Now it seems like a Loon's Chosen might be favorable, even though I think like the Wild Guardian buffs are kind of insane. And I think people like generally prefer the Loon's Chosen, even though I'm a big simp for Druid of the Claw. I think this matches like the playstyle and theme that I always envisioned Guardian Druid to have. Anyways, I'm interested to see how these are going to play out. I think they might, I feel like this is overkill in some cases. So I'm not sure. I think they might end up coming back in with tuning or maybe cutting these numbers back a little bit, but we'll see. I don't think Druid of the Claw is dead. I don't think Bear is dead. I just think that these are pretty some like heavy nerfs, but for good reason. Guardian Druid has just been doing like nutty damage at the end of beta and so far throughout the pre-season. All right, moving on, Monk. This is one that I'm going to talk about here, and I'm going to talk about in a little bit. So Master of Harmony, Meditative Focus is now increasing Tiger Palm's damage by an additional 50%, was 100. Basically, what they've done is they've just reverted the original buff. So Meditative Focus, when they was added, this is what it was. And then they ended up changing it from 50 up to 100, and now they're changing it back down to 50. This was a change that they made before fixing Facepalm. So it was super overkill, and it was like one of those things where they buffed this to fix a bug before the bug fixed, and then once they fixed the bug, it was just doing infinite damage. This isn't that big of a nerf, in my opinion. This is actually like exactly what I expected. And so this change should not affect Brewmaster that much. And then Aspect of Harmony stores vitality based on 12% of your damage done, and 6% of effective healing was 25 and 12. So they cut this down in half. Now, personally, I think this is a good thing, because what was happening in like, in keys or at the end of beta, like in High Mythic Plus, is sometimes depending on the pull size, you were capping your Aspect of Harmony like really, really, really quickly, and you had no room to actually expel. So you're actually losing damage in some cases. So I think this should end up being a little bit better. Like, of course, it's a nerf, but I think this is also going to help the playstyle. Now, Brewmaster Master of Harmony is going to be getting buffed in the near future, and I'm going to be talking about that here in a second once I cover Protection Warrior. And that's it. So Brewmaster got almost no changes. This was kind of my speculation. Now, of course, anything can change. Blizzard can always come in and add or take away, but I felt like Brewmaster was the thing that they were trying to have as like the middleman, the middle ground. So Guardian Druid getting nerfed down and all these other tanks getting buffed up makes me think that Brewmaster is actually in like the exact spot that they want tanks to be in, which makes me really, really, really happy. So that's a big dub. Anyways, let's move on to Protection Warrior so I don't waste too much time in this video. Warrior got a couple of changes. First, Piercing Howl in their base kit was actually upped by from 30 seconds up to 90. So if you're someone who is using this ability with Battlefield Commander, obviously this is a pretty sizable nerf, but also it's kind of warranted because Piercing Howl was so crazy being on a 30-second cooldown, where their justification is like all other abilities that have the same kind of effect are 90 seconds or a minute or whatever it is. So they want to put it in line. But yeah, Warriors, this was a small nerf. Now, Protection, they are seeing like a redistribution of their Apex talents. So first things first, Phalanx rank 1. Thunderclap now causes your next shield slime to deal 10% damage. 10% more damage, and Unleash a Wave of Force, dealing physical damage to all enemies in front of you. So the only thing that's changed from this is that they removed the 5% DR and put it at the end on the rank 4, which is a little unfortunate, but what it means is that now Protection Warriors are going to be incentivized to ideally run all 4 Apex talents instead of just running the single point, which I do kind of hate. It was nice having additional points to put into your actual spec tree and not feeling forced to put them into the Apex talents. But I get it. It's like Blizzard's out of the box feature. It's like the new thing for Midnight is these new Apex talents. So I understand why Blizzard wants them to be good and why they're packing these like more important kind of effects from the Apex talents into the rank 4 instead of being in the rank 2 or rank 1 like we saw with Bear as well. So rank 4, in addition to existing effects, enemies damaged by Phalanx Wave Force deal 5% less damage for 8 seconds. So if you're looking for that 5% DR, you're going to be incentivized to actually go this deep. But if you're not interested in going this deep for your Apex talent, you just are probably still going to just like play rank 1 or maybe 2 ranks, but we'll see. And then we also got a 10% damage buff. So this is really good. Now, a big issue with Protection Warrior that isn't listed here is that they currently have an execute bug where execute just isn't scaling or doing damage. It's doing less damage than revenge, and revenge hits all targets in front of you, where execute hits 1 to 3 targets depending on your talents. And so until they fix the execute bug, warriors are going to not look super, super great. This damage buff is like good, and it's obviously warranted. But once they fix execute, I think warriors going to move back into a dominant position when it comes to like single target and AoE damage. But we'll have to see. Anyways, those are all the class changes that we saw this week. I will leave this link down below if you'd like to read through it yourself. There's a lot of other class changes as well for everything from like Balanced Druid to Pres Evoker to like Ret Paladin. Ret Paladin got some crazy buffs. So I'm, this is all looking good. Now, I'm glad this information came out today and not like Monday. I feel like this might put a lot of players at ease, knowing like, oh, these are the changes that are coming up. So it gives you time to like level up a new character or adjust appropriately. So anyways, a quick thing that I want to do before ending this video is I actually want to talk about a few other discussion points that have come up in the recent, actually, I think they came out yesterday. So let me find this stuff really quick. So Blizzard has announced the 12.0.5 PTR class tuning, and this is actually live on PTR, and I'll log in a second and kind of show you what I want to talk about. But we are specifically going to filter down to Monk, and this is a big win. And so when we look at hero talents, Master of Harmony, Harmonic Surge is getting slightly reworked. And if we specifically look at Harmonic Surge for not Mistweaver, but Brewmaster, casting grants 2 charges of potential energy. Your next cast of Tiger Palm or Vivify consumes all charges of potential energy to cause a Harmonic Surge. This is a massive win. Now, if you've been following me for a while or are familiar with my takes, I've been pretty vocal about how much I dislike the direction they've been taking Master of Harmony, mostly because it just doesn't work anymore, especially with the Apex Town. I feel like there's friction there, right? Because you're getting constant resets, which means you have less globals to spend on Tiger Palm, which is fine. Like Keg Smash resets are really cool. I think it like having this more like relaxed reactive playstyle is good for some players. But I don't like how they kind of took Harmonic Surge from the War Within, the end of the expansion tier set, and just kind of like made it terrible. Because you would generally prioritize it in almost all situations in the War Within. But now it's like, it's kind of just this thing that happens, you overcap and you just sit at 6 stacks almost indefinitely. But I am right now on the 12.0.5 PTR, and sorry about my UI, it's just like super bricked. I literally logged in and this is what it looked like. But now what's going to happen is if we Keg Smash, we're going to gain a charge, right, of potential energy. So I'll Keg Smash again, and then I'll drink a brew, so it's going to put me at 4. I'll throw another keg, and then I'll throw one more, and now I'm at 6. But watch what happens when I go in Tiger Palm. It's going to consume all 6, and it's going to do a massive 31k hits on top of, obviously, the Tiger Palm damage. So if we pull this up, I'll try to find it here. You're going to see right here, Harmonic Surge hit training to me for 31k. So regularly, like normally, what I'll do is it's going to hit for, let's see it here, 5k. Harmonic Surge did 5k damage. So now it's expelling all of your stacks. And why I think this is good and exciting, first off, it fixes kind of the issue that I have. Now, I don't think it does it in the best way possible, but it's better than nothing. So there's 2 reasons I like this. One is you can actually dispel this or discharge these by casting Vivify. But it also means that there is a potential that Press the Advantage becomes a no longer a dead talent. Like it's actually going to be useful. Now, is it going to be best? I doubt it. I think Tiger Palm is extremely essential to single target damage right now, and taking it out of your kit is kind of a trap. But I do like the idea that Press the Advantage becomes viable, and all you have to do is pay attention, and before you hit 6 stacks, or right when you hit 6 stacks, all you have to do is maybe cast a Vivify and just like weave it in every once in a while. The issue with it on live game is that you have to like basically constantly be hitting Tiger Palm or Vivify to discharge the stacks, but because you can't discharge them all at once, you just end up getting energy starved. And so I am a very, very big fan of this change because it's actually utilizing the hero talent in its full capacity and doesn't really require you to think all that much about it. So here I am I'm at 4 stacks, boom, Tiger Palm, they're all gone, and I hit everything for like 13k or whatever. So it's a nice little burst of damage, which is what I really, really, really like about it. So this is a big win, but unless they change their mind and implement it earlier, this is a change that's going to be coming in 12.0.5. So this isn't going to happen on Monday. This is happening down the road. So just keep that in mind, but good things are coming for Master of Harmony. The last thing I'd like to discuss is crafting. There have been recent updates and kind of behind the scenes tuning that has happened with embellishments. And so I kind of want to clear it up just in case anyone is interested. Now, if you've crafted already, it's not a big deal. I definitely want to like dispel the notion that it's like not the end of the world if you crafted the wrong piece or the wrong embellishment. You can always recraft. And honestly, by the time like things really matter, you're gonna have more crafts than you can possibly need. So I wouldn't stress about it. Guides early on in the season, like in the first week, myself included, along with things like the Wowhead guide, Icy Veins, etc., we're recommending a setup where you were basically just running these very kind of flavorless crafting items. So you were doing like you were like crafting your necklace, your Masterwork Cinderai amulet, and you were throwing uh just this focusing iris on it. The new recommendation is not to do this. The new recommendation is actually for Brewmaster specifically, you're gonna you're gonna want to craft the Loa Worshippers Band. So this is a really cool item. I used it all of beta. I thought it was pretty good on beta, but I didn't really play around too much with other embellishments, honestly, because I just liked how this thing worked. So basically, it gives you crit and mastery. Crits, obviously, like probably our best stats. Mastery is competitive with versatility. Mastery tends to favor damage a little bit more, where Verse favors like defensive value. But both are good. But the way that this thing works is your damaging spells have a chance you call upon an avatar of a Loa to assist you in combat. Now, you're always going to get a main stat buff from this, no matter what, but your other effects are going to be based on the gems you have socketed in your gear. And you can choose which Loas you want to target by having the right gems in your gear. Now, I don't remember the exact gems, but like red will give crits, and some of them have like damaging effects on them. Actually, some of them don't have secondary stats and they just like deal damage, but some is like AoE, some is single target. But basically, as a brewmaster, chances are you're going to be wanting to like socket a bunch of red gems and maybe some blue gems for verse, but I think there's like just a damage proc. But anyways, that is the recommended first craft at this time. Things can change, but again, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. You can make a weapon first. You can just do the focusing iris first. You can even craft the belt. There's actually a really cool belt for obviously leather classes. It is called the Hex Woven Strand. This recipe drops if you are someone who's into leatherworking. It drops from, I believe, Myasara Caverns. And this has crit verse on it, so really good stats for us. And what it does is your damaging spells have a chance to apply a hex to a target. And it does damage over time, and the hex spreads to nearby enemies. And so it's like really good in AoE. So if there's like AoE fights, or if you're someone who just does Mythic Plus, this is also a great alternative craft. Now, going back to the Loa Worshippers Band, the next craft you would do after that is you'd probably make another finger, or you would make a necklace is what I recommend, because there's no good crit first necklaces or crit mastery necklaces. And so you can then make the Masterwork Cinderai amulet, and the embellishment you would use is the stabilizing gemstone. Now, what this does is it doubles the effects or the strength of your Loa Worshippers Band. And so you're kind of just doubling down on your Loa buffs. And so those are the items that I would recommend crafting. I would go ring the Loa Worshippers Band into the necklace with the boosted embellishment. But again, alternatively, if you'd like to, the belt is not a bad option, or crafting a weapon. So that's just like a quick little update I wanted to provide to you before the season starts, if you're kind of like waiting around to see what crafts. Now, the reason I'm personally not going to craft a weapon right away is because the second boss of the Void Spire raid that's going to be opening up, Voracious, drops a polearm crit mastery, probably arguably our best in slot. And you kind of have to think about your position in your raid team, but this is most likely going to be prioritized to classes that value crit and mastery, and classes that can use agility polearms, which is very, very few. You're competing with survival hunters, feral druids, a guardian druid maybe, And that's like pretty much it. And so if you're like someone on a raid team that doesn't have, or a Windwalker monk, I guess is possible too. But like if you're playing like on a team that only has like you're the brewmaster and maybe there's like a feral druid, like the chance of you getting that weapon might be pretty high. So that's why I'd hold off on crafting a weapon, honestly. But ultimately, it's a video game, guys. It doesn't matter too much. Don't sweat about your crafting. Anything is going to be better than what you currently have on, which is probably World Quest gear. So anyways, that was an update. Hope you guys enjoyed this video and this little breakdown. Sorry for like the hodgepodge format, but you know, it is what it is. I hope you guys are all staying happy, healthy, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace.